what I want to talk to you about today, if I can get this to advance, is procrastination. I think probably everybody has problems with procrastination because if you're working on something, it means you're not working on a lot of other things. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about procrastination, why we do it, how we do it, and a powerful little tool to help you address it. So it turns out that when we procrastinate, what's going on is we see something that we really don't like, right? And what that does is it activates the pain centers of our brain. So our brain, naturally enough, seeks to avoid that negative stimulation by switching your attention to something else. But here's the trick. Researchers have found that when you just start working on something that you don't like, that neural discomfort will disappear. So it seems what happens when we procrastinate is this. First, you observe and get a cue about something you don't particularly like. So what you do is you switch your attention to something more pleasant. And the result is that you feel a lot better, at least temporarily. Now, if you do this once or you do it twice, it's just no big deal. But if you do it a lot of times, it's almost like an addiction, and it can have powerful negative long-term consequences in your life. So the best way to deal with this is to use the Pomodoro Technique. Now, the Pomodoro was invented by an Italian, Francesco Cirillo, in the early 1980s. And Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and the timers used in this technique are often shaped like a tomato, but really a timer is all there is to this elegant little technique. All you need to do is set a timer, any timer, for 25 minutes. Then turn off all distractions. No sounds from your phone, nothing from your computer, and then you just focus for 25 minutes. Anybody can focus for 25 minutes. And when you're done, you give yourself a little reward. So you might do a little web surfing, chat with friends, have a cup of coffee, anything to comfortably get your mind off the topic for just a little bit. Now, when I'm doing a Pomodoro, and yes, I do them sometimes I'll get like 4 minutes into it, and I'll look at the clock and I'll go, wait a minute, I'm only 4 minutes into the Pomodoro? I've got 21 minutes left to do, I can't do it. And then I just let that thought just drift right on by. Distracting thoughts sometimes arise when you're doing a Pomodoro, and the best way to address it is to just let that thought drift right by. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I really know why I shouldn't procrastinate, so you don't really have anything additional to tell me, but I'm going to give you just a little more information. If you look at this image right here, this is a light microscopy image of a neuron before learning and before sleep. And this is an image of the same neuron. It's incredible what they're able to do after learning and after sleep. So this is why it's so very important for you to space out your learning. And in fact, you want to make sure that your learning doesn't do this kind of cramming sort of thing where you're actually, putting everything all at one time, because that makes it much easier for your little metabolic vampires to allow to suck away those patterns before they develop. Now, learning is a lot like laying a brick wall. You want to lay that pattern and day by day so the mortar can dry. You don't want to do it all at once, because if you do, you get a pattern that looks like this. Now, I gather that I've got only a minute left. I thought I had 8 minutes. Should I keep going? Okay, I'll keep going then. Okay, so why else do you want to not procrastinate? It's because you've got two different modes of thinking. And we're just beginning to understand the differences in those modes of thinking. The first one is focused mode. So focused mode is like, boom, you turn your attention to something and it's on. Diffuse mode is like neural resting states. Standing in a shower, not really thinking about anything in particular. It turns out that learning involves a toggling back and forth between these two different modes. So, some people have used this to their advantage through history, right? So this guy right here was Salvador Dali, one of the most brilliant of the surrealist painters, a wild and crazy guy. You can see him here with his pet ocelot, Babu. And what Dali used to do was to sort of tap into these different neural modes of thinking. He'd sit in a chair, relax, thinking about sort of a problem in his art that he wanted to solve, and he'd relax away, he'd have a key in his hand, and just as he'd relax so much that he'd fall asleep, the key would fall from his hand, the clatter would wake him up, and off he'd go. He'd take those ideas from the diffuse mode back into the focus mode where he could refine and analyze them. So lest you think that was only for artists, this guy right here was Thomas Edison, one of the most prolific inventors in history. And he used to do almost the same thing. When he had a technological problem to solve, he'd sit with ball bearings in his hands. And just as he'd fall asleep, the clatter would wake him up and he'd take those ideas from the diffuse back into the focus mode. So the lesson for all of us out of this is that it takes time when you're learning to toggle back and forth between modes in order to be successful. So the Pomodoro Technique is incredibly powerful. It's like an intense workout at a 25-minute mental gym, right? Followed by a little relaxation. And if you like this tip on learning, we've got a lot more for you on our free online course, Learning How to Learn Powerful Mental Tools to Help You Master Tough Subjects. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll see you online.